1949 to 1951, Mercury 8. Although always a niche brand in the greater scheme of things, Mercury looms large over the early hot rod scene due to the enduring popularity of the 1949 to 1951 Mercury 8. With its pontoon fenders and fastback roofline, the two-door coupe edition of the 8 became the canvas of choice for both DIY builders and professional shops that would follow in their footsteps. In particular, the Mercury 8 became notorious for the lead sled look, which made use of a chopped roof, rear wheel well covers, a lowered suspension, and Frenched headlights up front to further extend the car's sleek body style. Embraced by pioneers like Sam Barris, movies like Rebel Without a Cause also helped popularize the lead sled ideal throughout the 1950s. James Dean's smoldering screen presence more than rubbed off on the Mercury, which became the period's most enduring symbol. 1957 to 1991, Mercury Colony Park. In the era of the station wagon, the Mercury Colony Park was one of the most appealing options for families wanting to step into something a little different from the Fords or Chevrolets sitting in their neighbors' driveways. Exterior wood paneling was almost always on the menu. Given the brand's ability to churn out full-size sheet metal that moved gracefully from the fins of the late 50s to the slab sides of 1960s and to the hidden headlights of the 70s, the Colony Park retained charm and style while also delivering up to 8 seats of bus-like practicality. Available for decades with a big block V8 under the hood, the Mercury Colony Park was also a stealth performer that could light up the tires when driven home empty after the morning school drop-off. Its disappearance in the early 90s marked the end of Mercury's big wagon game and the beginning of its less successful embrace of the minivan era. 1969 to 1970, Mercury Cyclone Spoiler 2. For many years, Mercury was almost as involved in NASCAR as Ford was, and the Cyclone Spoiler 2 was its most potent performer. Built in the same vein as Chrysler's winged cars and the Ford Torino Talladega, the Spoiler 2 was a homologation car intended to sell in precisely the mandated amount required to make it legal to put on the track as a stock machine. So what made it special? The car's front clip was replaced with a sleeker version that produced less drag, complete with a modified recessed bumper. And the car's fastback silhouette and reshaped body also helped it cut through the air. A 351 cubic inch V8 motivated the car. For 1970, Mercury wanted to take things to the next level with the Spoiler 2 by introducing a radical coupe that completely smoothed out its grille and hood, introducing a hump where upright chrome had once lived, and replacing its headlights with tiny square projectors. Budget cuts killed the Spoiler 2, but not before a few prototypes were built with a 429 cubic V8 under the hood. 1969 till 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator. The Mercury Cougar presented an intriguing counterpoint to the Ford Mustang when it arrived in 1967 as a somewhat larger, more luxury-oriented version of the same platform. The 1969 Eliminator model put an emphasis on performance by adopting many of the updates that had been made to the Trans Am racing version of the car. Specifically, the Cougar Eliminator benefited from the inclusion of an air dam, rear wing, and hood scoop, which increased its visual aggression, if not necessarily its wind tunnel performance. Sitting under that scoop were a choice of V8 engines, including a 250 horsepower, 351 cubic inch unit standard, a 320 horsepower, 390 cubic inch mill, or a 335 horsepower, 427 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8. Eventually, the Boss 302 V8 also became available with the Eliminator, as well as a 370 horses Boss 429 V8. (1969 to 1970) Mercury Marauder X100. Although the Marauder name had been around for quite some time as the high-performance badge for Mercury's larger sedans and coupes, the X100 was a step above both in terms of attitude and design. Built on the automaker's full-size two-door platform, the Marauder X100 featured big block V8 power, with a 360 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque from 429 cubic inches, as well as a suspension tune that tried to rein in its tremendous bulk. Styled to pierce the eye and large enough to block out the sun, the Marauder X100 was one of the final specialty performance vehicles built by the brand alongside its Cyclone and Cougar cousins. 1970 Mercury Cyclone spoiler, 429 Super Cobra jet. Not quite as big as the Marauder, but certainly no shrinking violet, the Cyclone spoiler 429 Super Cobra jet was the drag strip's answer to the Spoiler 2. Featuring one of the longest and most descriptive names of the muscle car era, the 429 Super Cobra jet was redesigned compared to the previous year's spoiler, and its chunkier looks were far more extroverted and less concerned with oval racing aero. The attractive coupe's most intriguing feature was found under the hood, where a 429 cubic inch Super Cobra Jet V8, rated at 375 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, was fed a steady diet of cool air thanks to the ram air system built into the hood. That horsepower rating was a bit of a wink at the insurance companies of the day, as it posted only a 5-pony increase over the regular Cobra Jet V8. Some estimates put its true output at nearly 450 horsepower. An included competition handling package provided a suspension upgrade to go with the coupe's power boost.
That was pretty good.
1999 till 2002, Mercury Cougar. It's a well-kept secret that Ford had a competitive compact car platform available at the end of the 1990 Ace. The Ford Contour SVT was an overlooked performance machine that handled much better than many of its contemporaries. But the Mercury Cougar, which offered a two-door hatch interpretation of the same chassis, was a far more stylish option. Featuring up to 170 horsepower from a V6 engine, the Cougar was fun and easy on the eyes. Unfortunately, Mercury's brand identity had virtually evaporated over the course of the past 20 years, which meant past Cougar buyers were confused when the badge was no longer being applied to a sedate two-door personal luxury coupe, and potential new customers had no idea it existed. The Cougar left the market in 2002 before it could build much of a following or benefit from the full SVT treatment. 2003 and 2004 Mercury Marauder. Mercury briefly revived the Marauder name for a special edition of the Grand Marquis sedan in the early 2000s. Featuring a 32-valve version of the Fomoco 4.6-liter V8 engine, the new Marauder offered 305 horses and was dressed in monochromatic black, silver, blue, or red. Handling was enhanced by digging into the P-71 police interceptor parts bin, and the interior was given a somewhat sportier look. Unfortunately, Mercury was circling the drain at this point, and the Marauder ended up as a what might have been footnote rather than a rebirth for the automaker.